When Pete gets out of bed in the morning, he feels the cold air on his skin. So he puts on a jumper before heading out to the kitchen. The sun isn't quite up yet, so it is still a bit dark in the kitchen, and Pete turns the kitchen lights on. The lights are a bit bright for Pete so quickly after rising, so he moves to the part of the kitchen bench where he will have his back to the lights. While having his breakfast, Pete opens the window to let some fresh air in. Unfortunately, the construction workers next door turn their radio on and begin their hammering at the same time. Pete quickly shuts the window and takes his breakfast into the lounge room and puts on some of his favourite music to mask the sounds from next door. As he is getting dressed for the day, Pete notices that the new shirt he has bought is a bit tight around the arms for him and feels a bit uncomfortable. He is sure he won't be able to last the day wearing it, so he changes into another top. Once he is ready for work, Pete walks out the door and puts his sunglasses on to avoid the glare of the sun. He puts on his headphones to block out the noise of the traffic and begins his walk towards the bus stop. In his office, Pete has some chewing gum handy, as he finds it keeps him alert. At lunchtime, Pete heads down to the staff room. It is a busy place as everyone eats and talks with one another. Pete is happy to participate for a little while, but after 10 minutes, he begins to feel a bit overwhelmed by the number of conversations taking place and the amount of people in the room. He decides to go and sit in one of the other common rooms and read the newspaper. After lunch, he does some work at his stand-up desk, as he finds it keeps him focused and less drowsy. After he finishes work, Pete walks towards the elevators. There is a large number of people waiting to get into the elevator, and Pete doesn't like being crowded in spaces with other people bumping into him, so he decides to take the stairs. Whilst he is on the bus on the way home, a car breaks down and blocks a lane. It is hot on the bus, so Pete opens the air vent to let some fresh air in. Pete is getting frustrated with the delay, but decides to do a crossword in the newspaper to focus on something else. Before too long, the traffic begins to move again, and the bus stops to collect more passengers. A person gets on, wearing a strong scented perfume. Pete decides to excuse himself and stands up near the front of the bus for the last few stops to avoid the strong smell. Pete gets home and gets changed for soccer training. Pete wears tight sports skins as it supports his muscles and protects him from injuring himself. The coach gives the team a big workout at training, and Pete has to use water and ice packs to avoid overheating. After dinner, Pete does some work at his desk. He gets so into his work that he doesn't realise the time, and when he next looks at the clock, he realises he needs to get some sleep. Still feeling his brain buzzing, he decides to have a herbal tea and turn all the lights off apart from his desk lamp. Pete reads a few pages of a book and begins to feel tired. Pete gets ready for bed and then turns the fan on in his room, as he likes to sleep with the cooler air moving in the room. He turns the bed lamp off and falls asleep in a darkened room.